Welcome back to the Episode 8 season finale. Episode title, Key Events. 1. The Dust and the Stranger. Maya in labor, meets Damien on the road, asks him to pretend to be her husband. 2. The Stranger in the labor room. Damien stays through labor, names baby Eshe, disappears. Maya discovers he's a billionaire. 3. The Return. Damien comes back at midnight, confesses his mother's death, admits he's falling in love. 4. The Penthouse. Maya moves in, meets Damien's mother, survives fire alarms and press leaks. 5. The Enemy Within. Victoria betrays Damien. His father appears. Maya receives an anonymous message. 6. The Truth Teller. Maya meets Fatima, learns Victoria's plot, discovers Damien's adoption and real father. 7. The Takedown. Confrontation with Victoria. Recording. Resolution. Rooftop reconciliation. 8. The Return finale. Chidi Eze reveals himself. Evidence destroys Victoria and Victor. Wedding. Epilogue. 6 months later. The Penthouse. The penthouse had changed. Not the architecture. The marble floors were still marble. The windows still stretched from floor to ceiling. The chandelier still looked like frozen lightning. But the spaces had softened. A baby swing sat in the corner of the living room, gently swaying even when empty. Colorful blankets were draped over the white couches. A collection of tiny socks, mismatched inevitably, lived on the coffee table like an art installation that no one had authorized. Eshe was 6 months old now. He had 2 teeth, a devastating smile, and an opinion about everything. This morning, his opinion was that 5:47 a.m. was the perfect time to practice screaming. Maya shuffled into the kitchen, Eshe on her hip, her hair a mess, yesterday's shirt barely buttoned. Damien was already there, because Damon had developed a superhuman ability to wake at the first cry, standing by the stove in his pajama pants, attempting to warm a bottle. "How does this work again?" he asked, holding the bottle like it was a foreign artifact. "You put it in the warmer. Then you press the button, the one that says start. This warmer has 17 buttons. It has 3. 17. I counted." Maya sighed, a fond, exhausted sigh, and walked over to press the correct button. Eshe grabbed a handful of Damien's chest hair and yanked. "Ah, thank you, son. I didn't need that hair anyway." "He's giving you character." "I have character. I'm a billionaire. You have money. Character is different." Damien grinned, a lazy, happy grin that 6 months ago Maya never would have believed belonged on his face. The mask was gone. The armor was down. In its place was a man who laughed at burnt toast, who sang off-key lullabies, who had learned to change a diaper in under 30 seconds and considered it his greatest achievement. "Gerald is coming up at 9, Damien said, taking the warmed bottle and testing it on his wrist. "He wants to discuss the roof garden. He thinks we need more roses." "We don't need more roses. Tell him that." "I tried. He said, and I quote, 'Mr. Cross Holden, you set off a fire alarm with plantains. Your opinion on horticulture is invalid.'" Maya laughed. "He's not wrong. He's never wrong. It's exhausting." They settled onto the couch, Eshe between them, his tiny feet kicking, his mouth working the bottle. The morning light streamed through the windows, painting everything gold. For a moment, everything was perfect. Then Damien's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. His expression didn't change. The mask didn't come back, but something flickered in his eyes, something wary. "I need to take this," he said, standing. "It's my lawyer." "On a Sunday?" "I pay him enough to work Sundays." He kissed Eshe's head, touched Maya's shoulder, and walked to the other end of the room. Maya watched him go. She'd learned to read him over the past 6 months. The tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened when he was worried. Something was wrong. She just didn't know how wrong yet. 1 hour later. The rooftop garden. Gerald had been dispatched with a promise of, "We'll discuss roses tomorrow." The security team had been asked to wait downstairs. Damien stood by the edge of the roof, looking out at the city, his phone still in his hand. Maya approached slowly, Eshe asleep in the baby carrier strapped to her chest. "Damien, what's going on?" He didn't turn around. "Victoria is suing us." Maya's blood went cold. Suing? For what? Wrongful termination, defamation, emotional distress. She's claiming that I fired her because she rejected my advances, that I fabricated the evidence against her to cover up harassment. That's insane. It's strategic. She knows she can't win. But she doesn't need to win. She just needs to drag it out. Keep it in the news. Make my life miserable. He turned, and his face was tired. The papers are already picking it up. By tomorrow, it'll be everywhere. Maya walked to him, took his hand. We'll fight it. We will. But there's more. Her stomach dropped. More? The lawyer also heard from a source. Victoria isn't working alone. Someone is funding her. Someone with deep pockets and a personal grudge. Who? Damien was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I don't know yet, but I have a theory. Tell me. My biological father, Chidi Eze. Maya's breath caught. You said he didn't want to be found. I said I didn't want to find him. But maybe he found me. He has other children, other family. Maybe one of them decided they wanted a piece of the Cross-Holden fortune. Or maybe, a voice said from the doorway, it's just me. They turned. A man stood at the entrance to the rooftop garden. He was in his 60s, tall, with silver hair and a face that was handsome in a weathered, lived-in way. He wore a simple blue shirt and dark trousers, nothing flashy, nothing that screamed wealth. But his eyes were sharp, and they were fixed on Damien with an intensity that made Maya's skin prickle. Damien went rigid. Who are you? The man smiled. It was a sad smile, the kind that had seen too much and regretted too little. My name is Chidi Eze, he said. The silence that followed was the loudest thing Maya had ever heard. Damien didn't move, didn't speak. His hand, still holding Maya's, was cold. Chidi took a step closer, then another. He stopped a few feet away, his hands at his sides, his eyes never leaving Damien's face. You look like your mother, he said. The same eyes, the same stubborn jaw. She was the most beautiful woman I ever met. Don't, Damien said. His voice was a whisper, but it cut like a blade. Don't talk about her. I know I have no right. Then why are you here? Chidi was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because Victoria came to me 6 months ago. She told me about you, about your life, about the woman and the baby. She asked me to help her destroy you. Maya's grip on Damien's hand tightened. And did you? No. Chidi looked at her, really looked for the first time. I told her no. I told her I'd spent 30 years regretting the choices I made, that I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life making more. Then why is she suing? Damien demanded. Why is she still fighting? Because she found someone else, someone with more money and less conscience. Chidi's jaw tightened. Your father, Victor. Damien laughed, a hollow, disbelieving sound. Victor? He has nothing. He's been leeching off his new wife's family for years. He has connections, old ones, people who owe him favors. And he hates you, Damien. He's always hated you. Because you became everything he couldn't. Because you remind him that he was never your real father. Because your mother chose to love you more than she ever loved him. Maya's mind raced. Victor and Victoria, working together, the two people who had the most to gain from Damien's destruction. They've been planning this for months, she said slowly. The lawsuit, the press, the leaks, it's all coordinated. Chidi nodded. Victor is the money. Victoria is the face. Together, they're trying to tear you down so they can pick at the pieces. Damien turned away, his hands slipping from Maya's. He walked to the edge of the roof, his back to them, his shoulders shaking. You knew, he said quietly. You knew about me for 30 years. You knew where I was, what I was doing, and you never came. Chidi's face crumpled. I was ashamed. Ashamed isn't an excuse. No, it's not, but it's the truth. He took a breath. I was married when I met your mother. I had a wife, 2 children. I was weak, Damien. I loved Eleanor, but I wasn't brave enough to leave. And when she told me she was pregnant, I panicked. I told her to end it. I gave her money. I thought," his voice cracked, "I thought I could make the problem go away." "I wasn't a problem," Damien said, still not turning around. "I was a baby." "I know. I know that now. I've spent 30 years knowing that." Chidi's eyes were wet. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to listen. But I came because Victoria and Victor are dangerous. They're not going to stop with a lawsuit. They're going to come after Maya, after the baby, after everything you love." Maya's heart hammered. "What do you mean?" Chidi pulled an envelope from his jacket, smaller than the one Fatima had given her, but somehow heavier. He held it out to Maya. "I have evidence," he said. "Documents, recordings, proof that Victor embezzled from his own companies, proof that Victoria has done this before, destroyed other executives, other families. If you release this, they're finished." Maya took the envelope. It felt warm in her hands, alive with possibility. "Why now?" she asked. "Why help us now?" Chidi looked at Damien's back, at the son he'd abandoned, the son who wouldn't even look at him. "Because I'm dying," he said quietly. The words landed like stones in still water. Damien turned. His face was pale. "What?" "Cancer. Pancreatic. Stage 4. I have maybe 6 months." Chidi's voice was steady, but his hands trembled. "I spent 30 years being a coward. I don't want to spend my last months being one too." Damien stared at him. The anger was still there. Maya could see it, burning behind his eyes. But something else was there too. Something raw and broken, and achingly human. "You're dying," Damien repeated. "I'm dying, and you came to warn me." "I came to try, to do one good thing before I go." Chidi swallowed. "I don't expect you to call me father. I don't expect you to visit my grave. But I needed you to know that someone in your bloodline wasn't a complete monster." The silence stretched. Then Damien walked to Maya, not to Chidi, and took her hand again. He looked at the envelope in her other hand. "This evidence," he said, "it's enough to destroy them?" "Completely," Chidi said. Damien nodded slowly. Then he looked at Maya. "What do you think?" Maya thought about Victoria's smile, about Victor's cold eyes, about the months of fear and uncertainty, the nights she'd lain awake wondering if her family would be torn apart. "I think," she said, "it's time to stop defending and start attacking." Damien's lips curved. Not a smile exactly, something fiercer. "I love you," he said. "I know." He turned to Chidi. "Thank you, for the evidence, for the warning. I can't promise forgiveness. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for that. But I can promise that I'll use this, and that I won't forget what you did today." Chidi nodded, his eyes bright. "That's enough. That's more than I deserve." He turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. "Damien," he said without turning around, "your son, Eshe, he's beautiful. You're a better father than I ever was." And then he was gone. 3 days later, the press conference. The room was packed. Journalists from every major outlet. Cameras lined the back wall like a firing squad. The buzz of conversation was loud, nervous, hungry. Damien stood at the podium, alone. No notes, no teleprompter, just a man in a dark suit, facing the wolves. Maya watched from behind the curtain, Eshe in her arms. Gerald stood beside her, muttering prayers under his breath. "Ladies and gentlemen," Damien began. His voice was calm, measured, the voice of a man who had nothing to hide. "Thank you for coming. I know there have been many stories about me in recent weeks, about my family, about my past, about a woman and a child I love very much." He paused. The room leaned forward. "Most of those stories are lies, spread by people who want to destroy me. People who have their own secrets, secrets they'd prefer you didn't know." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. "On this drive is evidence. Bank records, recordings, legal documents. It proves that Victoria Adebayo, my former head of communications, has a history of blackmailing her employers. It proves that Victor Cross Holden, the man who raised me, embezzled millions from companies he was trusted to lead. And it proves that the lawsuit filed against me last week is nothing more than an act of revenge by 2 desperate people who have already lost." The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction. Damien held up a hand. The room quieted. I am releasing this evidence to every news outlet here today. You can verify it. You can publish it. I have nothing to hide. Not anymore. He looked toward the curtain, toward Maya, toward Eshe. The only thing I have to protect is my family. And I will do that, for as long as I live. He stepped back from the podium. The questions continued, but he didn't answer. He walked off the stage, past the cameras, past the shouting journalists, and took Maya's hand. It's done, he said. She looked at him, at the man who had answered her crazy plea on a dusty road, who had held her hand through labor, who had fought for their future against every enemy the world could throw at them. It's done, she agreed. Gerald cleared his throat. The car is waiting. Also, I took the liberty of sending Victoria a cactus. Anonymous. She'll know. Damien laughed. A real laugh, loud and free. Gerald, you're a treasure. I know. 1 month later, the courthouse steps. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. Victoria's lawyers had withdrawn the moment the evidence went public. Victor had fled the country, reportedly to a small village in Ghana, where no extradition treaty could reach him. Victoria herself had been arrested on unrelated fraud charges, her empire of lies crumbling in a matter of weeks. Maya stood on the courthouse steps, Eshe on her hip, Damien's arm around her shoulders. The sun was warm, the sky was blue, and for the first time in almost a year, she felt something she'd almost forgotten. Peace. It's over, she said. It's over, Damien agreed. Now what? Damien looked at her, at Eshe, at the life they'd built from nothing. Now, he said, we live, we love, we burn a few more plantains. Gerald will never let me live it down. Maya laughed. I love you. I love you too. Eshe, who had been dozing, opened his eyes. He looked at Damien, then at Maya. Then, with the unearned confidence of a 7-month-old who had already survived more drama than most adults, he smiled. That's his I approve face, Damien observed. He's been practicing. He's very good at it. He gets it from me. He gets everything from you. Damien kissed her forehead. Thank you, for asking a stranger on a dusty road to be your husband. Maya leaned into him. Thank you for saying yes. They walked down the courthouse steps together, a billionaire, a former seamstress, and a baby who had no idea how much he was loved. The cameras flashed, the journalists shouted, but Maya didn't hear any of it. She was home. 6 months later, the wedding was small, just family, just friends, just Gerald, who cried 3 times and claimed it was allergies. They found it 2 hours later. Damien framed it. Chidieze attended via video call from his hospital bed. He looked thin, tired, but he was smiling. He died 2 weeks later. Damien didn't go to the funeral, but he sent flowers, white roses, his mother's favorite. Victoria was sentenced to 7 years. The judge cited a pattern of predatory behavior. Damien didn't attend the sentencing. He was at home, teaching Eshe to clap. Victor was never found. Some said he died in Ghana. Others said he'd changed his name and started over. Damien didn't care. Some ghosts weren't worth chasing. And Maya? Maya started a foundation for single mothers, for women who had been abandoned, left behind, told they weren't enough. It was called the Eshe Foundation, because every child, she said, was a gift. Damien funded it, obviously. He also funded a new kitchen for the penthouse, because Gerald had finally banned him from the old one. It's not about the fire alarms anymore, Gerald had said. It's about the smoke. The smoke gets everywhere. Damien had nodded solemnly and promised to behave. He did not behave. But Maya didn't mind. Because late at night, when the city was quiet and Eshe was asleep and the penthouse was still, she would watch Damien standing by the window, looking out at the lights, and she would remember the dusty road, the contraction, the fear, the stranger who said yes. And she would think, some miracles don't look like miracles at first. Sometimes, they look like a broken-down SUV and a woman too desperate to be afraid. Sometimes, they look like love. Thank you for watching. The story of Maya and Damien is complete. For now. But the world is bigger than one love story. Amara Ise is coming, and she has questions of her own. Subscribe and hit the bell for Season 2, coming soon. Like this video if you cried at the wedding scene. Comment, who should Season 2 focus on? Amara? Gerald? Eshe as a teenager? Share this story with someone who needs a reminder that love can find you anywhere, even on a dusty road.